We're just about a week out from the return of Josh Emmett, you know, the goblin or the orc, and yeah, he's 40 years old now and hasn't fought in a minute. He's jumping back against somebody that's actually pretty good, an undefeated UK prospect in Lerone Murphy, which honestly is a pretty solid matchup. Unfortunately, it's at the Apex, so the vibe is going to be dead, no crowd, no energy, just classic Apex. Still, credit where it's due, this is one of the better Apex cards that we've seen in a bit. Now, look, I just want to say this really quick. Don't let the title fool you. I am picking Lerone Murphy to win this fight this Saturday, but that doesn't mean I'm counting Emmett out, just like how some people are. You'll hear the casual fan like, oh, Emmett's just an Apex level guy, nothing special, and I think that's such a lazy ass take. Emmett is actually one of the tougher matchups in the division when you really think about it. He's got serious knockout power, and if you're not careful, he can change the fight in an instant, you know, with one shot. That kind of threat makes him dangerous no matter who he's in there with. However, there's a couple reasons why I'm leaning towards Murphy in this matchup, and honestly, it mostly comes down to his youth and how well-rounded he is. He's got that calm, calculated style, very Leon Edwards-esque for the featherweight division. He can strike, he can wrestle, he's technical, and he doesn't really put himself in bad positions. Well, not too often at least. Another factor to consider too is Emmett's activity, or really lack of it. He's just not fighting enough these days, and I think that's gonna really hurt him now, especially now that he's 40 years old. Like at that age, time off isn't recovery, it's rust. The longer you're out, the harder it's gonna take to shake it off, you know, the cobwebs, especially in a 5-round fight. Against someone like Murphy, who's younger, sharper, and building momentum, staying active, you know, it matters at the end of the day, and that layoff for Emmett could start to show the longer the fight goes. But at the same time, Murphy's not exactly a finisher. He's kind of a decision guy, you know. I just don't really see him putting Emmett away, and that's where things get tricky. Because the scary thing about fighting someone like Josh Emmett is that if you're not putting him away and you're giving him time to work, you have to be perfect for 25 minutes. And that's a long time to be perfect against a guy with some serious one-shot knockout power. And Murphy, for all his strengths, has been caught before. It's not like he's unhittable. Let's not forget, Dan Ige dropped him in the first round of their fight, and Dan Ige, while his record is kind of mid, is one of the most slept on dogs in the division. That dude throws some serious heat. If he just had a little bit more cardio in that fight, then there's a real argument that he could have pulled it off. And then, if you even go further back, Murphy got dropped by Edson Barboza too. Like, yeah, Edson's a beast, but that's 2 recent fights where Murphy's been hurt. That's not nothing. Now imagine getting caught by someone like Josh Emmett. That's a whole different kind of power. Emmett's not throwing for volume. He's trying to take your head off with every shot. He doesn't need 5 minutes or even 5 exchanges. He just needs 1. So while I'm picking Murphy for the overall skill set and consistency, this fight absolutely has upset potential. If Emmett lands clean and he only needs to do it once, it could be lights out. And here's the thing, there's a reason why Josh Emmett actually landed that bomb more often than you expect. It's not just some fluke or anyone can land one kind of thing, you know. He sets it up. The dude has some of the most explosive entries in the division. He'll feint low, dip his level, get guys thinking that a takedown's coming, then he explodes over the top with that overhand right. And that timing, it's nasty. He catches guys in mid transitions where they're stepping in or trying to reset. I mean, that's how he destroyed Bryce Mitchell. That's how he knocked out Michael Johnson. So yeah, even if Murphy's looking sharp and staying disciplined early, it just takes one slip up for Josh Emmett to change the entire fight. That's why it's so dangerous for someone like Murphy who likes to stay composed and fight at a measured pace. If Murphy gets just a little too comfortable in that mid-range where Emmett thrives, he could eat one, and that's the scary part. Emmett doesn't need to string combos together. He doesn't need 5 minutes of control time. All he needs is one window, that one misread, and the whole fight can flip. Now, with all that being said, yeah, Emmett is dangerous, and yeah, he can absolutely land something that's fight-changing, but I still think Lerone Murphy is built to survive that storm and come out on top. Like, let's not act like Murphy is some green prospect who's never been tested. He fought solid guys, he's taken damage, he's been dropped, and he still found ways to recover and win. That says a lot about his composure and his fight IQ. Take that Dan Ige fight for an example. First round, Murphy gets dropped clean, but Murphy kept his cool, made adjustments, and slowly started pulling away as the fight went on. He didn't panic, he didn't start brawling, he didn't try to force anything, he just stuck to what he does best, staying technical, mixing in his wrestling, managing range, and chipping away round by round. That kind of maturity in a fight is rare, especially in someone who hasn't even fought in front of his home crowd yet. That's what makes this fight at the Apex kind of sneaky good for him. It's quiet, it's low stake, and it gives him room to be calculated without getting caught up in emotions. And the biggest reason I think he's going to survive Emmett, he doesn't overcommit. He doesn't chase finishes. He doesn't put himself in danger trying to force big moments. That's huge when you're fighting a guy like Emmett, because the second you lunge in or start winging shots, that's when he clips you. But Murphy fights behind his jab, uses a ton of lateral movements, and is super disciplined when it comes to defense. Even when he got cracked by Edson Barboza, he stayed composed. That fight wasn't a blowout, it wasn't competitive, and Edson's been there with killers. Murphy was in there hanging with him despite eating some bombs. So while I do think Emmett's got that one-shot threat, Murphy has shown over and over again that he can take a shot, make adjustments, and win rounds. And if this stays a technical fight where it comes down to volume, cardio, and smart decisions, Murphy's got the edge all day in my opinion. And man, when you look at the grappling side, I actually think that's a low-key X factor in this fight, and it's not as clear-cut as people might think. Starting with Emmett, yes, he's got a solid wrestling background. He wrestled in college, came up through Team Alpha Male, and he's definitely capable of shooting takedowns or stuffing them. But here's the thing, he rarely uses it offensively anymore. He's been so reliant on his power and his striking that his wrestling has almost turned into a break glass in case of emergency tool. Like, yeah, it's there, but it's not part of his game plan anymore. And when he faces guys who can mix it up or who are dangerous on the ground like a Yair Rodriguez, he struggles. Yair subbed him with a triangle clean, so it's not like Emmett's grappling is bulletproof. Now, let's talk about Murphy, because his grappling isn't super flashy, but it's functional and it's very effective. He's not a jiu-jitsu wizard, but he's shown good takedown defense. Great top control when he's needed it. Like, go back to the Edson Barboza fight, he scored multiple takedowns and used them to take over rounds. Again, we're not saying that Edson is impossible to take down, but Murphy showed attentional grappling. He didn't just shoot to shoot, he mixed it in to control tempos and steal moments. So you're probably asking, who has the edge here? And if we're talking about raw wrestling background, sure, Emmett. But if you're talking about effective MMA grappling right now in 2025, I'm giving the edge to Murphy. He's been using it more, mixing it into game plans, and making adjustments mid-fight. Emmett might still have that ace in his hole, but it feels like Murphy's the one more likely to actually turn to grappling if the fight calls for it. And if he gets Emmett hurt, don't be surprised if he jumps on his back, takes the rear naked route, or use top control to burn the clock and steal rounds. It's not out of the question. Murphy's grappling could absolutely be the quiet key to this fight. I honestly believe Lerone Murphy is going to win this by decision. I actually think Emmett could take round 1, maybe even drop Murphy early. But from round 2 on, Murphy's going to make those adjustments, start picking them apart with volume, leg kicks, mixing in the wrestling when needed. Don't get me wrong, Emmett will still land some big shots here and there. That's always going to make things tense. But over the 5 rounds, I just think Murphy's depth, IQ, and cardio wins. He's going to touch Emmett more, frustrate him, and just do enough to take over. It's going to be a war. Emmett's power keeps it dangerous at all times, but unless he gets the clean knockout, I see Murphy pulling away with a clear, hard-earned decision.